how does both Google and Walmart think about the notion of how do we accomplish these objectives without impacting both your customers and our customers, if you will, in terms of the cost to achieve these things? I mean, is it a topic of discussion? Just curious how you guys approach that.
I was waiting for Caroline to go first, but I can jump in. So there's a lot of pieces to this. In terms of looking at renewable procurement specifically, there are a few channels that we use to do renewable procurement. We've got the on-site behind the meter deployments. We've got the wholesale market, virtual PPA structures, and then we have utility programs. Each of them touches everybody in sort of a different way. The on-site, the way that, the traditional way of talking about impacts on other customers and for on-site is really around fixed cost recovery and the rate making process. Being a larger customer and having rate schedules applied to us that have demand charges and have more cost recovery like that, and that combined with our building load shapes, which tend to peak in the afternoon, early evening. For us anyway, we don't necessarily see a lot of conflict on that piece because for the most part, on-site solar doesn't do a lot to our billing demands, except for maybe in the brightest of summer months. And to the extent that we do further deployments behind the meter with associated technologies like storage, there are standby rates, and there's other ways really to take care of that on the large C&I side. In terms of the virtual PPA stuff, it doesn't really direct customers other than bringing those resources onto the market can help to lower market prices, which benefits everybody. And then as we look at utility programs, we do take very specific interest around creating structures that don't harm non-participants. And then we also have really started to take a look at structures that other customers can participate in and expand that pool of potential customers. I think I'll call it the Solar Together model. The Florida Power and Light has really been the first super large scale program that's been able to be customer groups. And I know Duke in Florida has a similar program from the commission there. And I've had several other utilities bring that model in, but just for the behind the scenes discussions as a potential because they see the value of having broader participation available and working through some of the issues that historically haven't really allowed for that, like comfort with term length and just scale. But it's certainly something that's front of mind because we want to do this for our customers in terms of bringing clean power to the grid and using that to keep our costs low. But we also, and we talked a little bit about this earlier in terms of the zero carbon and how it's really about power system transformation, is these movements, and not just our goals, but utility goals as well, will change things, and we need to ensure that things are done as cost effectively as possible. And we work through the process to ensure that risks around new technologies and different deployments are appropriately shared between shareholders and customers. I won't start on my construction work in progress rant for everybody that way. So it's certainly a lot of work to be done, but it's definitely front of mind.
Thanks. That's helpful. Caroline, you have any other comments on any of that? Does Google have a similar thought?
Sure. I mean, cost is always going to be top of mind for any business. What we've been, I think, lucky to see over the past several years is just this extreme cost decline in renewables, which has given, our leadership at Google even more confidence in moving aggressively in this space. And in a lot of areas, renewables are the cheapest option for us in the country. And Google and all data centers have a unique profile in that they are usually 90 to 95% sort of mission critical energy, and they have a pretty perfect, I like to say perfect load shape. We end up being really reflective of the grid needs in those times. And so that gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of value stacking. But what it also does is it forces us to actually really think about how to best integrate. And really over the past year, we've been doing a lot of thought about this, but how to really integrate resources onto the grid, as Steve said, that are actually going to benefit all customer classes. I think what we've learned over the past, decade of doing this is that renewables are cheap, and you can put them onto the system quickly. But if they're not done in a way that really meets the needs of the greater grid, and the greater and all the customer classes, some cost problems. And we've always been really adamant about making sure that we weren't pushing any cost to any customer classes. But now I think we're moving into a season where we're actually proactively trying to figure out how we improve costs for other customer classes. And so that's something that we're very committed to. And a lot of that is, making sure we're coming up with new innovative tariff designs, making sure we're using resources to their full capacity as both generation sources and grid resources, in partnership with our provider. So cost is always going to be at top of mind, and making sure, I think Steve shares this, that most of the customers that are in any space where we take electric service are probably customers of Google, and so we take that to heart, and are actively trying to figure out the best way, most cost-effective way to make this transition to